the hostel. All students were acting, in those movies. Now those 2-3 minute clips were impossible to process in Ahmedabad. So one of my classmates' brother had just got into the Film Institute in Pune. So I used to send it to Pune. They will process it, bring it here, and in this very projector, when no one was here, I would thread the film and watch those 3 minutes of silent clips. And they all remain silent because there was never money to do post-production. As you are aware, in celluloid, the post-production was extremely expensive. You will need to go to Mumbai, stay there, mix sound. So the celluloid era was very, very different. The quality of mini DVs and was not that great either. Not exciting. It wasn't cinema. So those were my early experiments. Even I tried doing small animation clips on that Oxbury stand, cell drawings. Whenever NID was still getting projects from Government of India to make films, So there was this teacher, Mr. Murthy, he was a cinematographer himself. He would take me with him. I said, look, if it's off day, let me be your assistant. So I learned sort of clapper, loader, kind of, where you load the film in a dark bag and lenses, and and truly have access to movie camera. And same time, there was the election of the film club. So I realized, okay, this is a great opportunity to see cinema. As a kid, I had only watched Bollywood film. I didn't even know there was Hollywood movies existed. It's only when I reached Baroda to study, I had to learn English first. I didn't speak any English. And even in NID, my admission was, on the condition that in 1 year, if my English is not good, it will be very hard for them to keep me here. So we used to have English classes just by the entrance. Right now, there's the administration office. There were like 4 of us among the whole. Everyone else studied in English medium school, but there were 4 of us. We have to go every evening to do English classes, and that was the most torturous memory of NIT because while everyone is having great time, we were learning English there. But anyway, so I discovered, with English, bit of Hollywood cinema, but the real discovery of the world cinema literally happened in this auditorium. When we started running Film Club, there was Alliance Française of Ahmedabad, and we knew already some films were coming because the faculty of film had interest in cinema. So they were bringing packages from the embassies. So the Italian embassy, the French embassy used to send packages. So you screen those movies, and that was it. So we saw a scope of going bigger. So there was another student, called Kajri Jain. She was really interested in film criticism, and so we started talking about directors, writing about directors, and started talking with every discipline. So whether you're doing exhibition design or furniture design, so when we had a film, we will know what is the film about, and lure the exhibition design student to our session to say, oh, this film is so much about space. Because director talks about space and time in cinema. So that's the exhibition design is about. I said, oh yeah, okay. So there was a lot of new information spreaded, and we said that it shouldn't be limited to people who are studying films. So generally the attendance and popularity of Film Club was very big. The second reason being, there was no Netflix, no Amazon Prime, there was none of that. So NID was one of the rare places to see world cinema. If you didn't see it here, you will only get pirated DVDs and VHS tape where copies were really bad, which we tried renting it sometime and watching it in the hostel, but the qualities were terrible, So this is how we discovered, while working with Italian embassy, we got Italian New Wave package. So those days I started studying about what is Italian New Wave cinema. Italian neorealism, neorealistic cinema, then French New Wave, Nouvelle Vague. So there were books in the library, I'm sure they are still there. There were just few basic books which tell you what was French New Wave, German Expressionism. So, then we'll have series on Fassbinder and Herzog, and it was just amazing. the learning, most of it, and then I had that little Bolex camera to try out. In all this parallelly, to maintain all the assignment to be given, in graphic design, almost twice I was nearly fired from NID because of too much of film activity. And even when we ran out of budget for the film club, so I remember created an association with IIM and School of Architecture, including the Alliance Française was already there. And we said if we bring the film print, we can share the cost 3 ways, because they also had a film club. And they were not doing much work, in what film to bring, what directors to bring. And when they joined us, suddenly the scope of programming films became very big. Especially today, I look at it, the kind of films we screened and the kind of directors, we were able to bring in this auditorium, that too with a film print. It is unthinkable. Now, of course, film prints are gone. But yeah, that was knowingly, unknowingly, just pure passion or love. But there was a lot of self-taught filmmaking was happening here at NID, and that's how kind of my initial journey started. So in the senior years, when you have to do industrial training, the closest option available to me was to do advertising film. So this is the first time I went to Mumbai in Lentas, and I did TV commercials there, just as a production runner. And then as a diploma project, I tried to incorporate cinema in my final year so-called thesis on diploma project, which was dealing that how the cinema can be used as a form of visual communication. So there again, I did a bit of cheating and got away with it. It took a long time to convince the jury to give me my diploma, but it happened. Ultimately, they agreed. They said, okay, we could agree that you could use film and not only advertising and graphics and design and signage to communicate. That was up to NID, and after I left NID, of course, it was altogether a different world. When you arrived in Mumbai, almost all dreams were shattered because the so-called popular cinema works on a different plane. There was no resemblance of anything I knew what cinema should be, or how the film should be made, or the aesthetics of cinema, or what is even the notion of telling a story which is cinematic. It was just way too different. So I realized the room I had was to continue with TV commercials. And that's what I did while I was doing TV commercials. I kept writing stories, and I love traveling, so I realized maybe if I can combine my love of cinema and travel, I should do documentaries. So that paid off, So I started doing a lot of documentaries. I did documentaries for Discovery Channel, Net Geo, that allowed me to travel across India. I did one in Nagaland, one in Karnataka, and literally waited 6-7 years before I can find money to do my first feature sometime.
If you could also tell us a little about Shello Show and how did the idea come up, if it was inspired from your life.
Yes, how many were you able to see Cello Show? Can you tell me? Yes, okay. Oh, great. Okay, then it's I don't have to repeat a lot of things. It is inspired from my childhood. When I was a kid, I had not seen any movie till I was, I think, 8 or 9 year old. And when I saw first time, literally the film called Jai Mahakali, my parents thought that going to cinema is not good, for kids, they shouldn't watch, it's immoral and all that. But there was an exception to watch something religious. And when I saw that film, I was just totally mesmerized as a kid. I'd never been to even any town or anything like that. And there and then I knew that I had to do something with films. I didn't know whether it's acting, directing, cinematography, or projecting the film, because I knew nothing about that. I knew nothing about the profession or how films are made, zero knowledge, but I knew that this is where I have to go, and somewhere I felt that this is where I belong to. And now how to do that, as a kid you're still in a school. So almost, all the movies I saw as a kid were popular Bollywood or whatever we call popular Indian cinema. I used to bunk school and watch them. And just like in the movie, I used to swap my lunchbox to befriend a projectionist. And my mother, like everybody in my family, a great cook. So that used to work on him like magic. And he will let me watch free movies from the project booth. So that was like the childhood, and then ultimately I wanted to go, when my father recognized that, okay, I'm interested in cinema, my art teacher says he's too young to study film. So this conclusion was drawn that he should get out of the village first, study some English. And as I used to draw and paint a lot, and use all these cardboards and make stuff out of that, and line matchboxes like Samai does in the film. So I used to collect matchboxes, which are, as you know, are super creative. It's one of the best design discipline in India, are the matchboxes. So as a kid, I used to line them up and create stories out of this. So you'll have a Kisan matchbox, chili matchbox, gun matchbox, Nach girl matchbox, line them up and say, एक किसान था, उसको एक gun मिली, फिर वो chili खा के भाग गया, and then the kids will be, would love listening to those stories. But those days I didn't even know that it is what I later discovered 10 years later, that there is something called storyboarding, in cinema, which was so close to. So when I was introduced to storyboard, I said, oh, this is piece of cake, I've done it like all my life, this is no big deal. So all those things were there, but the practical filmmaking sort of didn't happen till I reached sort of NID, when I started shooting those clips. Anyway, many years later, when I made few films and documentaries, and I was visiting my parents, and that time, this is before pandemic. He told me that there was a theater called Rupam Cinema, and the real projectionist name was Mohammed Bhai. So he's not doing well. You should go and see him. So when I went to meet him, he said that he has lost his job, and not only him, about 2 lakh projector operator across India have been fired from their job because the digital system is coming, and there were 2 problems with most of the projector operators there. It was more like a manual labor, so very few of them knew how to read or write. They really knew how to run films, thread film, control sound, but running a digital cinema was altogether a new profession. So India had lost huge number of, around 200,000-300,000 people became unemployed. He was one of them. And he said since 30 years as a kid, he didn't know any other profession. And he told me that, अभी तो फिल्म की पट्टी है, उसकी तो पगड़ी बन रही है, इसका ये हो गया, प्रोजेक्टर की तो चम्मच बन गई. So meaning, so those things stayed with me, in a way, as a lover of cinema and somebody who has shot with celluloid, and what was happening to him. So first I was moved by his story, and I said, oh wow, this is insane, and I'm not the sentimental type. I don't have a nostalgia that, oh, we have to love film and not digital. I'm a storyteller, and I can embrace every new invention which comes on my way. So I was deeply into digital filmmaking already, but that encounter, meeting him, gave me the idea that, okay, maybe there's a story to tell. Earlier, I never made an attempt to make anything about my childhood because it's something what I try to run away from. So I never wanted to address it in cinema. But when that story came along and I realized that there could be a good ending, this is when I got courage. Because if not, it could have become one more nostalgic, sentimental piece about, oh, now celluloid is gone, and so I didn't want that. Just during the pandemic, right before I visited, the place where I grew up, and started writing the film. And then literally it was made during the pandemic, and we just didn't know what are we going to do with the film because the world looked very different. Everything was stopped, and no one was going to cinema, and so it was a pretty dark period while we were making it. But there was a fantastic team behind, and we just loved making every moment. And some of the locations you see are real places where the railway stations, and they are like real places where I grew up as a kid, like Amreli, and yeah. So that's what it became. The rest is a history, because we thought it is never going to see, no one is going to watch this film, and we had screened it for Cannes, and the artistic director there really liked the film, and his favorite film was Cinema Paradiso. So he said, oh wow, this would be great to screen. And just when they sort of decided that the film could premiere there, they went virtual. The Cannes decided, because they were just coming out of pandemic, and the government and city of Cannes decided, oh, we can't have anyone here. The festival is going to be virtual. So-called our sales company and distributors, we decided that, okay, this is a cinema about cinema. It will be pity that some people are going to watch on their laptop. So we were still, but after all, it's a Cannes, there was attraction. But same time, the Tribeca Film Festival, that was the first festival in New York going, physical. After nearly 20 months, not all the festival was stopped. But Tribeca decided that, okay, as vaccine is coming out and whatever, we are going to go and do an in-person event outdoor. Indoor was still forbidden in America, that no indoor event can be held. But they had designed a whole pod system that across New York, they will be screening, and reviving and bringing back cinema. And it was their 20th year, so they didn't want to lose that opportunity of celebrating 20 years of Tribeca. So they had liked the film, but and we told them, no, we have, we want to go to Cannes, and they said, yeah, but in Cannes you will be just one of the film. We love the film, we will break rules, because we will make it opening film of Spotlight, which so far has always been American movies. This is the first time it will be a non-American film. And our sales company saw, from commercial point of view, that okay, Cannes might bring prestige, but we want to sell the film. We want to show it to maximum people across the world. So their analysis was that in New York, the real people go to see cinema by paying $25, which doesn't happen in Cannes. Cannes, when you have the audience, it's 100% made up of people who have something to do with cinema. Filmmaker, actors, distributors, cinematographer. There's a very little real janta or audience there, which is opposite, and the Robert De Niro created Tribeca mainly to have all people get exposed to world cinema. So that really helped, because once we did that premiere, finally the hope came back. Because then BBC did a 5-minute coverage on the film, about the movie, and American distributor acquired the film, and a few other countries. And then we realized, okay, we could still believe in this kind of film, and maybe it will travel somewhere, and yeah.
Maybe we can make the session more interactive now if people have questions. Guys.
Hello, I'm Anshika. So a total fan moment. पहले तो like Like literally when I was telling my friends yesterday ki, oh my god, like my most favorite film is going to film in the auditorium, I was literally crying. So thank you so much for coming here. A second thing I wanted to ask is, a lot of times when we are working in the films, like right now as students also, when we are doing stuff, we are doing it on a certain level, and we reach a point where that level we are accompanied is good enough. Like, okay, whatever level I'm now working on, I'm doing it good, but now I want to level up. So how do I find that next level? So I don't want to jump a level either, because then I won't be able to work very well with it. So I want to level up, but how do I decide how and what level that is?
Uh, I would say, are you in filmmaking or?
No, I'm in foundation.
Foundation, right, yeah. I think whatever we do, for me it's always, you must have heard from many other people, it's storytelling.
Yeah.
And that is the most important. And that's always going to override, because now next thing is maybe the AI is just going to make a film for you, but the story still has to come from you, and the only level up which I have seen in other filmmakers' career is only when they chose certain story to tell, and then once you do that, everything you do here can be useful, because then how do you tell your story? Because there are many stories which will be similar, but the way you tell it might be very different.
Okay.
And you might have seen many examples of the movies when you narrate to someone, it sounds hollow, meaningless. But just because the way the film was made, it's truly say that that level up you are talking about is only going to come through what you want to do next. I would say that even goes through any discipline, whether you're doing architecture or furniture design or exhibition, you are ultimately, I think you're always selling some kind of a story. If you listen to some of the good architects, they are always selling the story.
Yeah.
And if they don't have a story to tell, you don't find that building so exciting. Like all the Corbusier's building which are standing in Ahmedabad, you just bring someone without the story, they are just meaningless structure. So I would say like that could be the one way, that you have to really choose what stories you want to tell, whether they are personal or not, or can you make them personal, and how, and then how you are going to execute the story, with the changing format. Now we have so many ways where the gap between video games and streaming platform and cinema is narrowing every day.
Yeah.
Now we have AI around the corner, which is going to change the industry in a very big way. So all this is going to be important as you level up. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, anyone else? Anything?
Hello, I'm Sai Teja from Foundation first year. So I'm like confused right now whether like I'm recently exposed to these parallel films apart from popular culture. So even I'm also interested in painting, drawing as you were in your previous years. So how what is the turning point that made you get into films, that too in this plane of films? So, and what you suggest for one to explore this side?
I think for me, as I told you, I was always interested in telling story, and cinema is something which fascinated me the most. But cinema is one of the discipline where you have to know everything. You can't say you can't, because tomorrow you might make a film about a doctor, then you have to literally become a doctor in order to make a good film. You make a film war movie, then you need to become a historian, before you could even really write a strong character. And you will see such work has gone in on every film you have loved. So that is one of the big attraction for me, that cinema has, you are constantly, every film I start, I'm starting from scratch. It's always starting from zero. And I enjoy the process because you have to do all the research, discover the world, before you tell the story, especially if the world is not yours. So that's very different than, let's say, painting or drawing. Because for me, I thought painting and drawing is a very selfish kind of activity, where you are just doing it for yourself, and you could really say, I don't care if nobody sees it, like many painter will tell you. But same time, they are dying that people come to their show in the gallery and all. I didn't have that notion. I said, when I make film, I want people to see. I don't want to send it to festival. I don't want to win award. I want it to reach to audience. I had no doubt about that, So when I started making movies, like for at least nearly 20 years, collectively I must have won, 40, 50 awards, but you will see, I never see a photo of me taking award. I never went to collect awards till things started changing because of commercial reason, because I thought it was important that it reaches audience. So because I had something to say which I thought would interest people, and that was the decision, which could be useful for you. I'm guessing that it's a bit of introspection that, okay, if I do painting, drawing, graphic design, that can be also used. You can be doing anime or manga or graphics and tell story. I equally enjoy that, reading those books as well. That's also a visual storytelling, form of visual storytelling. But that question is, I know, very difficult to answer. And that answer has to come from you, You have to do a bit of soul searching and find yourself in a form which is where you feel most happy and, I would say comfortable. Yeah.
Thank you.
Hi, I actually wanted to know what your writing process is, especially when it comes to writing female characters in your films.
So, writing process would vary from story to story, but of course, each and every character, I go through very deep study, So there are usually 8 to 10 steps are very important for me when I write a character. First of all, to know that what is his or her world, whether it's male or female doesn't really matter. Where does she come from, And where was she born? And does she have a parents or orphan, brothers, sisters, siblings? That is very important. Once that is understood, then I start looking at the character and imagining, okay, what's her world view? Suppose I tell her, hey, if I tell my character, Donald Trump is president, how would he or she react? That will define my character. And I said, Modi ji is meeting Trump, how would she will react? Or I say, there's a plane crash. Oh, there's a poor person standing outside NID gate, he's nearly homeless. How is that character reacting? So those worldview, political worldview, religious worldview, social, so I define what are those characters' worldview, and I always write them down, because then I start understanding my character. Like it's very simple. If you're sitting with 5 friends in a canteen and you moment to bring out a topic, each one will have its own point of view, and that makes him, Aditya or Riya. You start identifying because they have a strong worldview. So that's very important. Then I write things like, okay, what is the dark side? We all have dark side. We cannot say. We all have flaws. What are the flaws? What are the dark side? Because more flawed the character, more real it will be, because nobody wants to see a perfect hero or heroine, or if they want to see that they don't want to get emotionally attached to. They will want to watch him like Captain America and forget about it after the movie gets over. So like it won't move you, but if you know a flawed character with weaknesses, and blind spots, and so does my character have that, male or female? So those things are defined. Then also things like some idiosyncrasies, habits, we all have certain kinds of habits. Do I move my hand? Is my character Italian? Will I do hand gesture? Or is from somewhere else? Or he or she does he scratch his head all the time? These details are very, very important, and you see all great actors use it all the time. And the reason you don't see them because they are great actors. But if you watch the movies you love and dissect it, and analyze it, and you will see nothing is coincidence. Whether Robert De Niro stirring his coffee certain way, or this, or a smoke, or cigarette, or somebody always using hand on the face, it's all pre-planned and preconceived by actor and director. That's what gives them the character. That I'm not going to act with my face at all. Whether I'm happy, sad, or scared, I'm only going to bring my hand on my face and do gestures. I'll do this, I'll do that. So there are a lot of these idiosyncrasies are very important. Then I would also throw in sense of humor. Does the character have a sense of humor or not? And so I would say there are these few things, which are written from every angle of every character before they end up in the story. Then the story becomes easier to write because then I know my character. Oh, she cannot laugh here. Oh, she cannot crack this joke. Oh, her political view is this. Oh, she has a dark side. Oh, she is flawed. Oh, she is from this background. So those details are of extreme importance before you do any kind of story with character. Otherwise, the characters will always look shallow, and an audience might not know. They will just tell you picture achhi nahi thi, I didn't like the film. But they might not be able to point that I didn't like the film because I saw a character which is completely not relatable to me in any way. And so these characteristics are super important when I write. Now coming to writing a female character, I of course very often I've worked with co-writer who are women because however well you write, it's never going to be enough. Because female point of view is very different. For example, there was a little clip of Angry Indian Goddesses. I didn't even write the script. We improvised the whole film. So I had two writers who did all the research. We built the character the way I told you. Then we brought in the actresses, and I decided as a man I cannot write the story. It was right after Nirbhaya case, where the nation was still talking about the rape and what to do and the justice, and everyone had their own anger, and so we realized that one way to make this film has to be an organic way. Let everyone participate in what story we want to tell. And one of the first thing we discovered that, the two of the writers, that every time they went to the gathering of urban Indian women, if four of them were together, there were 40 issues being discussed. It could be sexual harassment, work, marriage, whatever, rape and people. So there were just too many issues were there in urban India, which was mostly ignored because people generally believe that women in the villages or rural area India have problems and urban women are fine. so that even forced us that we have to do this in an organic way. So there was something called retreat where our writers and actresses work together to build the character and develop the story, where we allowed the behind the camera team to participate as well, like costume designer, production designer. They were all women, and they participated, in storytelling. That this is what happened to me. This was my experience growing up as a kid. Some were really horrific experiences, going up to a girl being molested by her own uncle. To it was almost like a psychoanalysis, catharsis, the writing of that process. But that was good for Angry Indian Goddesses because theme was about women in urban India, where actually even the lines came from the girls. We told them that now you know your character so well, you know your viewpoint on the society, on the world, on the drama, on issues. Now you make up your line because you know you are a trophy wife from Delhi. you are a struggling actress in Mumbai, you are a musician, you are a CEO from Bangalore. So each character did their own research, looked at a lot of interviews of, for example, the CEO character was played by Sandhya Mridul. She looked at a lot of interviews of women CEO, and say, oh, the manner they talk, and she brought all that into her character. I don't think there are any rules. Everyone could have their own way. But understanding character, I would say, is the prime importance before you really start writing dramatic or action or thriller scene with those characters.
Hi, I have two questions for you. So one was I've seen Cello Show, but then now I think before when you came in, we was seeing some of those other visuals of the other films that you've made, and I think one common thing that I've noticed is that there is a slight fantastical element to it, right? It's not just a regular film like as a medium. So how do you conceive these visuals? Are these experiments out of you doing it later, or is it something that you've pre-planned in the past with the visual thing? And the second question is also kind of similar, but on a more writing and directorial note, because you said, 2 points that you just mentioned. So there are no coincidences on set, but then you can't write from a female's point of view because you are at one. So while directing, how stringent are you on set, or how organic are you on set? So that's the thing. So both in terms of visuals and in terms of direction, I'd like to know.
Yeah, great question. So I would say there are two things. Every filmmaker has his own process, and my process is that once I fall in love with the story, then I believe every story is born with its own visual DNA. That okay, this story in this universe, that of course is personal. It's a bit like being an artist. If someone else tells a story, they might choose a different way of making it. But I try to explore. I'm not that author-driven cinema. Regardless of whatever story I make, treatment is the same. Like a lot of Woody Allen films. Whatever story is in one way. Meanwhile, you have directors like Kubrick. With every story he reinvents himself. So I'm much more interested in that kind of cinema. Then okay, now I'm making Samsara or Valley of Flowers. They were both like epic love stories. Like in Valley of Flower, the story starts in the early 19th century in the Himalayan Silk Route and finishes in modern day Tokyo, where the hero lives 200 years and keeps meeting his lover, again and again. And finally there's a climax. So suddenly that film needed magical realism. But again, it's not about the VFX and science fiction. It has to look very real. The way that reality also came from the world which the Himalaya is. You go to places like Janskar, Ladakh, Nubra Valley, Spiti, and and you can't laugh at people when they tell you, oh, there is this sadhu, he can levitate. And you have to say, yes, you're very nice, thank you that he can levitate, So, it has to be that world where people have accepted that the holy man is going to levitate, and he can levitate, and nobody's bringing their education and question and science and technology, and that logic is just beyond, So the story is set in that world, so the visual treatment is like that, that even if he does levitation, there is no big BGM exploding the theater. You are not over-narrating your visual because, oh my God, he's going to levitate now. No, he's levitating like you are watching in a documentary film. So that whole universe of Valley of Flowers or like manga, like, anime, like Japanese, the whole universe, because Japanese manga and the storytelling, where people just go, they die, they are reborn, they come 9 times, 10 times, they come as machine, they come as human beings, some are reborn as cat. Nobody questions, and it has a huge fan following because you accept the world and you start believing in the belief system which creator has created. So that is the most thing, that you create a system where your visual storytelling is a soul and spiritually connected to the story. In case of Samsara, because it was a Buddhist and a spiritual theme, the whole treatment was very contemplative. You know, the sound design, the choices of color, like actors and cinematographer were completely controlled. Like every single frame was drawn, you know, and it was, we sort of tried to get a perfection frame by frame and never let any of that cinematic vision slip away from us. In case of Angry Indian Goddess, it was totally opposite. You know, the actors had a complete freedom to go on any set, wherever they feel like. In Samsara, Valley of Flowers, or last film show, you know, it's actors who follow the camera. In Angry Indian Goddesses, it's the camera which followed actor. You know, so actors suddenly say, I'm going to run to the kitchen. Don't worry, you run. The whole lighting was done in such a way that they were free to go around in this space. And we were shooting with multiple camera, you know, and we had decided what is our visual style, you know, earlier on by doing some experiments. But that story was like that, you know, we were going to talk about 6-7 urban Indian women on the edge of nervous breakdown. So there was already a rhythm set there. It's going to be like, you know, not a camera on tripod, you know, it's going to be a handheld camera, you know, energetic, constantly following them. So that defined the style of Angry Indian Goddesses. So it's always the same, you know, I would say that if you do an action movie again, you know, which we are working on something right now, you know, so again I'm thinking, okay, what is this, how is this going to be different? You know, you don't want to end up, because there are 1 million action movies, you don't want to cut and edit the same way and use the slow motion same way, which people are just tired of seeing. Or is there another way to tell the story, you know, to bring action to attention? And once again, it goes back to story and those characters. So yeah, I would say, you know, it's very often the story which gives you the style of camera movement, the choice of lenses, the color palette, you know, is decided accordingly. For example, in Cello Show, you know, we purposely used vintage Lomo lenses from USSR, ex-USSR, because we wanted, without using any filters, some kind of a film look. We didn't want image to be perfect. The modern digital lenses were giving images too crisp, clear, too, I mean, everything was just too perfect, you know. So if you see in Cello Show, you know, the images are not perfect. There are a lot of areas which are out focused, they are blurred, you know, the grain quality, those lenses created. So, you know, there was an adapter made on a digital camera. So the lenses which were designed for celluloid were used to collect light, gather light, but recording was done on a digital camera, Alexa. So that is a palette we thought, as its film is going to be a love letter to cinema. Let's try and use that. So we experimented with cinematographer and we liked the result, and we found what the kind of look we were looking for. So every film I usually like to do a look test, you know, which defines the lenses, lighting, color, and choices of editing. Yeah.
Thank you.
Hello, sir. My question is that which are your biggest artistic influences? Like which directors and artists in general have impacted your views on cinema and creativity?
I think the influences are conscious and unconscious, both, and they keep changing. You know, sometimes you don't even remember something you have seen long time ago. But my influences are more from non-film stuff. You know, not really the film director, or, you know, if there's a film director, it might be, you know, unconsciously, because we all watch so much of cinema. You know, in early days, there were directors like Hiroshi Teshigara, you know, whose work I really liked, you know, or Andrei Tarkovsky. You know, there was a lot of people, but the influence and inspiration come from very strange books and some other which has nothing to do with cinema. You know, there could be books like, you know, structure or why things don't fall down. You know, this by Gordon. You know, it's about just engineering. You know, of the bridges and. You know, and that sort of inspires me how to structure my screenplay. You know, even though that book never speaks about cinema anywhere, or the book on architecture, like Timeless Way of Building, you know, by Christopher Alexander. It's a book on architecture, but a lot of things he talks about is I like to talk about in cinema. The space, the time, the concept of timelessness. Yeah, I would say that, you know, it could be even, you know, graphic novels sometime. But I do find with changing time, you know, every 5-6 years you have some director who really inspire you and say like, oh my God, wow, this is really amazing. And as I said earlier, thanks to maybe NID Film Club and watching so much of cinema, so very often lot of references just go back to, you know, great classical cinema or great masters because they were the first one to do it. You know, you could have a lot of experimental cinema, but Maya Deren did it 100 years ago, you know, and she was a woman, you know, who made amazing experimental films, you know. So you can have All Quiet on Western Front 2 years ago winning Oscar, but it's just the ignorance of people because 1935, the All Quiet on Western Front was equally a great film for me, you know, because it just did some of the most remarkable thing ever. Or Joan of Arc of Carl Dreyer, mainly because the way it's a silent film. And it's one of the silent films where you don't miss the silences at all. And till today I haven't understood how did he do it. You know, like you can literally see, you can hear the fire, you know, when she, you know, you could hear the people scream, you can hear every sound, you know, and it's not because I'm a filmmaker. I've spoken to a lot of lay people, you know, who have nothing to do with cinema. They watch it and say, it was amazing. I could hear almost everything. You know, I don't know if you ever screened Joan of Arc, the silent film. But anyway, it is something, you know, which is just one of the most remarkable film ever made, which broke all the ground in terms of close-ups and editing and so-called sound design without ever using sound, and which till today, you know, being repeated by whether it's you know, George Lucas or you know, big-time Japanese director, people still take inspiration from me. So I definitely go and look and study, you know, and I'm just fascinated by those worlds. So when you are making film, you know, of course it stays there. And Cello Show was one of the opportunity for me to pay homage to a lot of filmmakers I love, you know. So there was a conscious framing like David Lean or Tarkovsky, you know, that was all done consciously, you know, whether it's Kubrick or Lumiere brothers, you know, little shot of train in black and white. And I realized that if I don't do in this movie, I will never have another story where I can pay homages to all these great filmmakers.
Hello. So, how do you think your filmography has changed over the years? Like, when you have moved from different styles and different genres, because like in Angry Indian Goddesses or movies like Samsara, it was more about spiritual and cultural thoughts, and in the other woman,
Yeah.
yeah.
I think, you know, we all, whatever films we make, but we live in a contemporary time. So it's just a natural urge, okay, oh, maybe this feels like I want to tell this story, you know. Maybe it's, so I don't know if today I would make Angry Indian Goddesses again, maybe not, you know, because it was the atmosphere, the Nirbhaya case had just got over, and a lot of friends, you know, especially the women around me, you know, just angry that you all filmmakers are losers, you don't have guts to address any issues, and you know, and one of the outcry was that every time there was a movie, whether it's Three Idiot or Rang De Basanti or whatever, they always said, okay, 3 or 4 guys go and have great time. There are never women who go and have great time. So we said, okay, someday some women will make that movie, and Then the woman director also made a film, but again 3 guys went to Spain and had a great time, you know. So they didn't choose girls, you know. So this is when this outrage was coming towards me from all the friends, and he said, okay, we should do it now. You know, it felt like this is a good time to do it as fast as possible. And one of the fastest ways not to wait for stars, not to wait for financing, just go and shoot the film, because sometimes that energy is very important. Then things keep changing. You know, in 2017, the platforms became really strong. All the streamers became very strong. That changed what kind of films you want to make. You know, cinema became challenged. Then the pandemic changed again. So now, you know, after, like before pandemic, I had decided to make last film show, Cello Show, which you saw yesterday. Today, I don't think I will do that because I don't know who's going to watch that. You know, I mean, we released, you know, in more than 60, 70 countries now, but I'm not sure that what has changed. So I would say that the choices of film, you know, change with time and what one is observing, and the strong desire to tell the story, you know, and to try different type of stories. So, you know, right now, currently what I'm writing is, you know, I'm writing like action, you know, elevated, supernatural stuff, you know. So, and say, okay, why not do something? Because I feel more trash I see, you know, there's a great desire, oh, there is a room to make a great action movie, you know, like the way some great Hong Kong movies came, you know, which became The Departed, you know, The Infernal Affair or Hard Boiled. You know, they all became landmark. They were popular action movies. But having said all that, it's always said, oh, I have done already that. What can I do new? You know, and every time it is so happened to be a new genre kind of a movie. You know, so once it's like a kind of a spiritual quest, second time it's a family drama, third time it's biographical love letter to cinema. These days I'm interested in, you know, doing much more, let's say, epic, you know, epic scale of work. You know, I want to just experiment with much bigger canvas and, you know, take the story level to, you know, maybe at another level. I don't know how it will go. Let's see. We are all working on it these days. It's very challenging, but it's almost like making your first film. Yeah.
Now, since you have idea of both, like the Bollywood as well and independent cinema as well. So, what is your key learn? Like, what is that one learning that you would like to share?
Sorry, I didn't get the question. Bollywood and?
Since you have now the idea of both the sides, like the Bollywood as well as independent cinema, so is there any key learning that you would like to share? Like,
I think from day one when I made film, I never used the word independent cinema, Bollywood, festival films, art house film. I think it's better to stay away if any of you trying to practice and going to make film, because that's just going to confuse you, you know. And the reality is that you have to make a film, and the film comes with ecosystem. You know, it is not cheap to make a film. You need a village or an army to make a film, and you have to really know the economics behind. You just cannot say, oh, it's like my painting and I'll go away. You know, then you put your own money, do what you like. That's fine, you know. But I always knew that I want to make film to the audience. You know, it must reach audience. But at the same time, I want to enjoy what I do. You know, I don't want to just do anything which is an assignment or a job given to me. You know, so that is the first thing. That when I made even Samsara, you know, we knew that it has no star, no studio backing, you know, and it's going to come out head on with Star Wars, you know, and that's the reality. You have to accept it. That, you know, and the moment you start hiding behind independent cinema, oh, I did art house, I did small film, I think it's a bad beginning, and I always discourage people to never think like that, you know. No film is small. Why? Just because they had $200 million and you had 20,000 rupees, that doesn't make film small or big, you know. And the history will tell you an example. You know, there are big classics which were made with 20,000 rupees, you know, and there are big classics which are flop, which no one remembers, made with $300 million. So I think that's one key important thing. I mean, mainstream cinema in India, we call it Bollywood or South or whatever, is always going to remain till we don't change it. You know, we need to change it in a good way, and only way it can happen is by showing film of all kind to people when they are young. You know, it has to start at school level. You know, today, as I was telling just somebody, you know, we do have taste for food. You know, we are eating in Ahmedabad. When I was in NID, you know, there was not a single burger place. Forget, there was nowhere you can eat. Even the Italian places were like Gujarati Italian places. You know, so you would get South Indian food, you will get Punjabi food. You know, and now you have whether Lebanese and whatnot. You know, I mean, you have every kind of food because people had developed a taste for it. Somebody told them this is what the Lebanese food tastes like. This is what the Chinese food is about. You might Indianize it a bit here and there, but the explosion of the food across India from around the world is exactly the same in cinema. You know, if people do not see Japanese film, they will never want to see one. They will always want to go for masala dal chawal, which is spicy, and so this is where the mainstream cinema is going. But if the people in school level are watching, because I remember even now when I meet some of the friends from IIM School of Architecture, almost every year they thank me for NID Film Club. They said, oh my God, we can't believe if we were not part of it, imagine we'll be so dumb. They say that we would have never watched a South Korean film if we were not part of the film club. Because they were here, they developed a taste. Okay, I always watch Bollywood, they will always watch Hollywood. But after that, what? This is where they started watching. Now they are bankers, they are working at Citibank and places like that. But they constantly ask me, what is good to see? Have you seen that Mexican film? And these are not film people. So I feel that it's a good cinema, just like good food. If there's a good film, why not? But then you must have a taste for it. And if there is no taste, people will not go. And that for me is a big learning. Whenever we went with Indian Goddesses, cello show, even across India, the kind of number we getting from Netflix, the piracy of 2 million copies of the film, from the Bangalore software firm proves there's a hunger. Somebody wants to watch cello show. Why would 2 million Indians will download pirated copies? So that means it's not reaching to the audience because of the ecosystem. I think we are done. Thank you so much, everyone, and thank you.
Thank you for coming.